All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's live stream. Get WRIT Live. We are back. It's Dr. Rich Scrivener. Great to be back with you all. And, hope you're enjoying the day, even if it's kind of gloomy before this impending storm that we might be feeling if you're in the GTA area. So, it's another reason to get kind of cozy. And maybe during the snowfalls and things like that and storms, you'll find a nice quiet place to write next to a window or something like that, just as we did near the end of December for one of our streams, Cozy Vibes and Winter Writing Prompts. So again, welcome back. We are on the third installment of this term talking about minimalist writing platforms. And so I have some questions for you all that we might work through during this entire stream. What helps you stay focused on a task, especially a writing task? Is it pen and paper? Is it a feature on a word processor? I'm going to talk about some of my approaches, which are pretty straightforward, but for the most part, I want to focus on some of the recommendations we've seen out there in professional writers' websites and things like that. There are so many of them. You can type in just in Google distraction-free writing platforms and minimalist writing platforms to help you focus on a task. And you're going to see myriad results, right? You're going to see things from for-profit websites to recommendations by substantial news sites and things like that. So there's a lot to consider, and it's always, I think, my job to help us focus on a few that may be manageable and hopefully free, unless you want to invest in some already existing software, things like that. So welcome as usual. Let's talk through some of the things. And hello, Dia. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're feeling cozy, especially with the impending storms. All right, so a couple preamble things I always like to announce at the beginning of this live stream. Just want to thank, once again, Writing Center Director Jon Sufrin and the Writing Department for supporting another term of Get WRIT Live. As I've said before, I've quite enjoyed these streams, especially during the fall term and lately. I mean, last week we had an awesome group working through visualizing our writing workflows and hoping for the same, right? As we start writing together. I think that's been a viable thing we've been doing. And if you'd like to see any of the past streams, you can go to the web link that's available in the show description. This is what I'm looking at right now. You can sort of see the schedule coming up. So today, as I mentioned, we're doing minimalist writing platforms. February 9th, we'll be talking about writing for accessibility, and we'll have a guest speaker from the student newspaper, The Excalibur, to talk about some of the accessibility moves that are going to happen when you're writing for news and then when you're working with media. February 16th, we have the topic of reviewing anti-racist publishing practices and editorial guidelines. So you have two students coming in, talk about the zine that they're producing and how they're working through a mentorship sort of workshop to hopefully encourage more community members to contribute, right? That is one of the things about recent moves and calls for anti-racist publishing practices is to be more inclusive rather than gatekeeping in terms of publishing. So if you'd like to see any of those past streams or you want to keep track of what's coming up and what's different in the forthcoming live streams, generally just what's forthcoming, feel free to look at those. Writing Center page also has resources linked to one-on-one appointments that are coming up. You can always sign up for those. There are just myriad appointments available each and every day, at least 6 days a week. And there are also online paper submissions you can think about, whether you're just brainstorming or putting the final touches on an essay. All right, so always want to give a shout out to the great support we get from the Writing Center and the Writing Department and from you all. Thank you for all of your comments and such so far. Yes, way too many writing assignments, right? How do you sort of separate those tasks and so forth? What are you sort of working on to get that work done? Okay, so what helps you stay focused on a task? As I mentioned, is it pen and paper? Is it the features of a word processor? Other rituals you might have in place, right? a couple things for me I kind of talked about in our session on cozy vibes is, besides programs, I need my giant bottle of water with me. I need a cup of coffee, things like that, just because it helps me just sit at my desk, right, and get the work done. I could stay focused on a task, oddly enough, if I have two screens, because I can push everything off that I don't really need to see in front of me, such as Spotify or other notes and so forth, on one screen. And then my primary screen has what I'm just working on. So, little secret of mine, as I'm working on this, I've got my notes on the left, my little prompt, and then my actual production stuff here in front of me. And that's just a way to visually block it off a bit when I'm working. Also, to stay focused on a task, especially a writing task, I don't have my email usually up at all during tasks. You've heard me talk about on a past stream, especially this one, talking about working in 15-minute to 50-minute spurts. That's really important for me. I mean, almost every day I work in 50-minute sessions because that's my time to get work done. I keep the internet on, of course, things like that. But I turn my email off. Rarely do I even have an application that I use to open it. I just log in via the web address, outlook.com, and check it. I don't even keep it on my phone, right? I keep it on my pad, which is separate from me. It's just ways of blocking out information during certain times. It's almost like checking email as a reward, oddly enough, for me. If I'm reading it all day and I've got the notifications and pop-ups and things like that right before me, available at any time in real time, I'm not going to get a lot of work done. I'm going to feel tempted to answer those emails, right? But more specifically with writing processes, I've talked about this where we even did this on the Cozy Vibe stream too. I just use pen and paper. And last week we had a contributor in the chat talk about just working with that item to sketch up ideas. But similarly, if you're just trying to get work done, maybe turning to the pen and paper. Get yourself a nice notebook. I think this is a moleskin notebook, but out on various sort of big box websites, even at our sort of bookstore, we have really simple sheets of pen and paper you can kind of work with, or pencil. And to limit myself from actually making lots of changes, especially with pencil, I didn't even have an eraser on this. I just write and put it out there. So recently I was kind of making a plan with this article I'm actually revising, and it's due in a matter of hours, I'll admit. Just kind of sketching, different notes as I went through what my plan was for changing it. It's a way to step away from the many, many features we have on word processors and so forth. But yeah, what have you found to be useful? Do you find that pen and paper is a kind of waste of time? For me, it's a way to get an idea down without really having to format it, to worry about it, and then to retranslate it when I'm ready. So it's just another call for pen and paper. I know a lot of students I've talked with in my classes have spoke to that value, even if they're big fans of digital writing tools, which from being on the stream, I very much am. And then more specifically, I won't really talk about this so much in the stream because I want to focus on things that you can access immediately, and then maybe you want to try during the stream as well. But having referenced Scrivener multiple times, if you do have this program, a quick reminder that there's an option up here called composition mode for the writing program Scrivener. And what's really nice about it is it just gives you what you see on the screen. So a lot of times I'm not writing in full screen when I'm working on Word. I've got a couple tabs open, maybe in another browser, but this lets you kind of dial in, and it changes the color and so forth of the page. And as you can see here on the left and right, it blocks out anything else. And what's kind of cool is in the filter or the composition mode, you can fade in or fade out your background. So let's say you're working on a document and you still want to see what your notifications are, something like that, or you're just working on one screen, maybe on your laptop, you could do something like this, but keep it still pretty subtle to allow you to perhaps focus your attention just on this. So I just block the whole thing out because that's what I have to do. It's almost like I've got to have shades, in this. And then without having to do any kind of zooming or anything like that in the actual font, you can zoom in and just look at different parts of it. Now, this is pretty massive, so I don't think I want something like that. Whereas, yeah, this is probably a little bit better for me, maybe even a little larger, just so I can dial into a particular passage. You can also increase the width of it, which I think is pretty cool. Again, if you're just trying to block out most of what you see behind you, this could be a great option. And it's a matter of just clicking escape, right? That lets you go back to your normal idea. I mean, so here I can see all my comments. I can see the sort of outline I have. As you know, I really love this program, but sometimes you need to just dial in. So this is what we have here. Another cool thing about this is you can click on focus here on the bottom of the actual option or mode. And let's see, I think you have to kind of change it just a little bit. But let's say you're just trying to dial in on this paragraph. This is really useful for me because, again, I'm usually kind of reading from the top to make sure I'm sort of situated into my argument. But if I'm just trying to revise this one particular line, instead of having to drag it out into another platform or something like that, I can just dial in and focus on this particular passage. Say if I'm up here, for example, I can just work through each one of them individually and sort of see, do they make sense, on their own? Can they stand on their own? What kind of line editing do I need to do? There's even options to look at sentence by sentence, right? It looks at where you marked periods and tries to understand, tries to highlight those for you. And even line by line, it doesn't make that discretion really. You can click and hold on it, move it around a little bit. And so, yeah, again, for me, that's just a way of trying to dial in, especially near the final stages, perhaps, of a piece. I'm working on something that's due this week. And at this point, I'm just going line by line, making sure that they make sense. Each line does. And that each paragraph builds on the next one. Dia is saying, I prefer pen and paper for brainstorming, but prefer digital when drafting. Yeah, and so if you're just, like I was showing you my pen and paper, I might be drafting or doing some brainstorming there. If I'm kind of stuck, though, I'll draft an entire page in pen and paper and then move it to a platform later on. It's just because I don't want to be tempted to go to Google Scholar or something else. I want to just get some ideas down and then translate them, in a useful way that I want it to be keepable, right? Whereas I feel like when I'm making things and deleting them often in a digital platform, it feels like I'm not really getting anywhere. But if I actually just write it down with abandon, in this case with the pen and paper or pencil and paper, and then I move it to Scrivener, I feel like it's a little more productive. I don't think I have it on me, but when I was working on my book, and I'm still working on that, I have a graph notebook that I've been working with, and I've actually been sketching my web designs in there and then moving it over to a platform. So I think kind of similar to your case, Dia, I've resisted a lot of experimenting with the web design until I have a general idea of the shape of the article or the shape of the design. Okay, so those are some things I do, quick hit kind of things, that have been baked into my process. But really for this stream, I'm going to try some new things I've been sort of sampling with, yes, sure, in preparation for the stream, but things that we can maybe try together. So let's talk about a couple of these, sites and sort of references that have been out there in terms of distraction-free and minimalist platforms. So this is from Gizmodo, and the link to this is in the show description. But it's from 2015, mind you. However, it's still covering some pretty useful applications that we might think about, and that I've checked and are still working. So the whole scope of this is to address how do you get some serious typing and writing done with so many distractions around. You can block it off with headphones like I do. You can, have your sort of rituals. You can have your materials to get it. But what are some applications that might be useful to you? They recommend a number of paid ones, such as Typed, Writer. There's even OmniWriter. There's Hemingway Editor. There is AI Writer, Byword, kind of trying to simplify anything from HTML to writing creative work. Ulysses, which I've talked about on previous streams. If you want to check that out, you can go to writing software in lieu of Word and Google Docs. And a couple more that are listed here that I thought was, maybe they've actually removed that. I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, those quick 9 ones. And then honestly, if you're sort of Google searching distraction-free apps, which I'll just show you, writing. I'm kind of going through these, and a lot of these may not even be based on sort of writers, but they may be like venture capitalists, as we sort of see here. And the same things keep showing up. Ulysses, Storyist, which is, another one-time fee that you're paying. And sometimes these are kind of hefty, folks. We're looking at like 28 pounds in their reference here. And again, Hemingway keeps coming up. And then Byword and other things that have these distraction-free interfaces. And they're even saying Grammarly has some distraction-free services. I have not tried that, to be honest. But if you have, let me know if that's been useful for you. And what they keep getting at is these are minimalist ways of doing work. They even mentioned that Google Docs is potentially useful for this, but I'm not quite sure. I mean, I can sort of hide things when I'm working in a Google Doc, which I can show you in a bit, but I still find that there's a lot of options, right? However, there are other things that aren't even listed on here that are in different websites that mention, ways that simple apps that don't have really any features at all, or actually make them hard to find, right? So that you can get words down on the page. And a lot of these are paid, so you have to think kind of carefully about that. Is it worth paying fees to get words down on the page, right? Or should we just resort to different programs that are free, or are as similar to notepads and things like that that we might use on our computers? Okay, so looking at some of this information, I was sort of thinking about what's out there. And before that, I want to mention that there's also this movement lately I've been seeing on Instagram, and maybe you've been seeing it too. It's called FreeWrite. It's a tool that people are using where it's presenting like a really simple interface that's basically like a smart typewriter. So it can access the web, it can publish things to the cloud, if you will. But if you look at this, it's just pretty simple, right? White screen, black words. They're claiming that it takes 25 minutes to refocus on an original task without a single interruption. And I think what they're kind of saying is this will help with your flow, kind of barring other ambient sounds that may distract us. Certainly that's my case. That's again why I wear headphones. But thinking about is it worth investing in something like this? It kind of meets you in the middle of working with pen and paper and then working with a specific platform. I don't know. Need to check on the price. Yeah, it's around $500. Pretty expensive, but again, it seems like it's pretty popular with folks. It's been sold out in a lot of cases, and it's pretty minimalist. So it could be pretty interesting. So what are some things I've been looking at, though, specifically that we can try together? I've got my timer set up. Let me just move this up outside the browser so we can actually see. I'll post a link to this as well so that you can feel free to try, see what you like about it. The first one is called Calmly Writer, and I think I may have talked about this just a little bit before on our stream as alternatives to Word and so forth. But here it is. So this is the one we'll try together. There is Calmly Writer online. Actually, more specifically, you may want to check that out. And you can download it if you want, but I've just been working from the online platform for a bit, just to get some sort of ideas for it. It works more exclusively on Chrome or Chromium, Opera, Edge, or Firefox. So if you need to download Chrome, you can. I've tried it on Safari; it doesn't work, but if you're on the PC side, you should be just fine. So yeah, let's try this for about 15 minutes. I'll just shut my mic off, kind of check in. The timer's here on the right, and just kind of experimenting. Yeah, I'm going to copy paste some things in. I've had some experience with it in preparation, of course, for the stream, but I want to really get my hands on this and see what's kind of going on here. So let me just change the prompt here in the ticker, and we'll be good to go. That's one thing I've really liked about this stream, especially this term, is writing with you all. So let's try that. Okay. It is set. Let's start it and go. Sure. Of course, now I have to mention one thing is I'm already tinkering with the settings in the background so I don't have to mess with it later. And one thing that, I don't know, I'm going to go ahead and go with it. I don't think you can hear it on my end, but if you're typing, the customization enables you to enable that typewriter sound. So it's kind of almost encouraging you to think working on a typewriter. Very interesting, to say the least. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, folks, we are back. So we've been trying this program Calmly Writer together, and I hope that went well for you. So a couple quick impressions as I sort of got a little more into what was going on here. Um, Calmly Writer. So as I sort of mentioned, it's got really minimal options here for you to think about the project. So you're just presented without even needing to sign in, an interface that looks pretty clean, right? For the most part. Um, it gives you your word count, it gives you the amount of characters, and it tells you the kind of average reading time. And what I'm assuming from that is it's for just reading at a pretty general pace, right? And so what I just tried here was I imported an article I've been working on and wanted to go line by line with that typewriter sound that you can hear if you're working on it. And there's also focus mode, which I realized too, and tried to see how that sort of worked. Um, turning on dark mode may be good in terms of helping initiate some kind of calm. You can change the font sizes. And then focus mode, what I realized is when you click on a particular line or a paragraph, for the most part, I think that one's not working. But for this one, you can go through and train on particular paragraphs, which I think is really great because it fades out the other ones and fades in the particular passage. So if here for me, like I'm looking at this passage and I might be thinking about how it fits in the larger story I'm trying to tell or argument I'm building. But if I'm just trying to maybe line edit this a little bit, it's going to highlight it for me and I can train on it a little bit better. And so I think I was working through something like this near the end. I forget what passage it was actually. It just seemed like it worked a little bit better for me because it highlighted the area I was actually working on. I realized, for example, like there was a coding error here and the passage I need to italicize when I actually move it to the web. But I think without this, I may not have picked that up. And you know what, folks, it's hard to catch errors a lot of times in our own writing when you've been staring at it for so long. And this kind of just renders it in a little bit of a different way. And that way may be valuable for us if we're trying to polish, for example, the end of a work. And that typewriter sound, I can't get enough of that. It's pretty interesting. It's not too distracting for me. I also want to mention I just had imported something from a piece that you should also feel free to look at. That it's my former advisor Laura Mischke has written an article for The Atlantic a number of years ago that writers have always needed mobile devices, and so she looks at, for example, like writing boxes on desks and so forth that people would bring around. If anything, getting work done is about rituals, right? You have the same desk you work at all the time. And eventually those rituals make some of the distractions perhaps a little more manageable because you kind of get in that sort of flow state. That's sort of the way some of these arguments will go. But she's talking about that, writers, including Frederick Douglass, would need these mobile devices they would bring on their travels to get work done. So pretty interesting. Highly recommend that. But what I just did for this exercise is I included this very minimalist feature they have where you can insert pictures, and it works pretty well. It even highlights it for you, and I'm even noticing that it's not even letting me delete it as I go through. So this could be good if you're just trying to compose a blog post and you don't want to worry about cropping and stuff like that as you put an image in. Sometimes, as we know, Word and other programs like to give you those options right away, but this just takes it as it is, which is also nice. Okay, so in a minute, I'm going to talk about a couple other applications that we can sort of think about. There's Writer, which we'll look at, and then drafting, and then it's kind of about not editing, and that's sort of what they get at. But real quick, I'm going to go ahead and shut my camera off for a second, and then we'll spend about 15 minutes with the remaining time just trying out one or two of these applications. Okay, so be right back. Okay. Hey, folks, I am back. Let's talk about some of these last applications. We spent 15 minutes just a bit ago working through Calmly Writer. And now we want to talk about some of these other sort of apps that are interesting. And if you're just joining us, I was working through Calmly Writer for a bit, thinking about the focal points that you get from this app, totally free to use. And yeah, it's pretty similar to, kind of pen and paper and maybe even Scrivener, which was paid, but allows you to enter a composition or focus mode. This does it for you. I didn't mention too that you can export this later on or even print it and so forth. So if you want to download a version of it, print it in some way, it's right from Chrome, where you can just copy paste it out once you're done. So it's just a way to move your writing around in a way that helps you focus. Okay, I better keep that too. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this here in the side so I don't lose my work, because that would be bad. Watch me delete it anyways, and I'll just forget. Who knows? All right, so there's another one on here called Writer, which is really great. I was playing with it this week that I'm going to post here in the chat too, that you're free to check out. It's also baked into Chrome and offered by a company called Inspire My Writer. So if you're looking at this, what's nice is it opens up the application. I think it needs to be reminded to do that because I've done it a couple times now. So let's see, does it actually do it in the background? Little testy sometimes, I'm not going to lie. We will try to visit this again. See if we can copy paste that in. We may have to go back to the actual page. You have to like quit Chrome entirely or something like that, which I don't want to do. I can open up a new browser. Yeah, interesting. It's not letting me do that now. A nice little usability test we get right on the stream. Nothing like that. Let's see what is going on. There is another one I think they've had. Oh, it could be because of that. Let's see. Extensions. What are the ones that I have? Just paste it in there. Her Chrome app. I really like this one. Interesting. Launch app. Okay. It's as if it's thinking or something in the background. I'm not sure if it's blocking pop-ups or something like that. We'll have to see. Overview. Website. Maybe I was onto them. Who knows? All right. So what I'll do is just, you know what? It may work this way. Let's see. I'm an authenticated user. Sure. And just a simple click. Does not want to work right now. Interesting. Okay, so we'll just piece out to that one. But take my word for it, it's pretty interesting. It's the same kind of idea as Calmly Writer. Just presents you with some very simple ideas. And then from there, you can add as you go. And what I'll do is just copy this while I'm thinking about it into my other documents so that I don't lose my place. And maybe what I'll do after showing you draft is move it. So let's try that and move it back to my documents. Perfect. There we go. Okay. That is saved. So now I feel less paranoid about doing this. Gonna remove that. Gonna open up this new window. Or at least try to. New window. Let's see what happens. There we go. Okay, so there's draft. Draft is another pretty simple interface. This is one you have to, unfortunately, sign up for. But what I think is cool about it is once you've logged in, and it's another thing I've talked about constantly on streams, is that for these kind of simpler things and distraction-free things, sometimes you have to give up something, which is your email. So just use that carefully. But what's cool about draft is, again, the simple options you have here. You can sort of preview, you can add bold and things like that. There aren't a lot of changes. There isn't even really like information about words and things like that unless you change them. And then you can also invite people to collaborate on it. So it tries to simplify the process for you as much as possible. It doesn't really give you like too many formatting options. It does use a thing called Markdown, which we'll talk about later during the term. There's some quick ways of changing your text and so forth, so you don't have to do much formatting, or you can just simply start writing. So as I was doing earlier this week, hey, this is the Get WRIT live stream. We stream every Wednesday. Like writing live, right? You get to see all the little indiscretions of this. So as you were just seeing on the stream, when I'm writing, and I do this all the time, I'm starting to write something and I'm kind of correcting myself as I go, right? Like we don't do that a lot with pen and paper. That's one of the beauties of doing it, is you just put things down and maybe you scratch them out, but you can't keep going back to a line and making sure that it's perfect, right? This might be really important for some writers. So you're going to write the next piece where you're saying, in next week's, let me just try to do this without any error. So stream, I'm going to discuss writing for accessibility with a student from his chief. Okay, so I might want to correct that. Mac lets me do that pretty quickly. But what if you don't want that? What if you want to actually restrict yourself so that you can just get the words down? You could focus on the one of the subtasks, which is just to meet a word count, right? So in draft, once you've signed up, you can click on this mode called Hemingway Mode. And I think that it's sort of harkening back to his approach to, again, try to get words out on the page and then sort of like not worry about editing in the first few phases. So this might be great if you're feeling a bit stuck and you're stuck, but you're ready to focus, so to say. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to write another sentence, and you're going to notice when I click on the delete key, you can't really see it because I got my keyboard down here. I can't actually delete anything. I've turned that feature off. I've restricted myself to that. And again, that might be a little unnerving, but also just good for moving through the task. Some questions I'd like to ask. I even tried to do that now. I can't even do it, so it's forcing me to stop. Okay. So you see here, like I can't even move that around. I can maybe do kind of a hat. Yeah, it won't even let me back up. So there are some restrictions there. Ah, I mean, and because of things like this, you're seeing on the screen these, the app itself or the operating system app itself wants to make these corrections for me, right? So I can go through here and I don't even actually, it will let you do it in that way, um, which may be a kind of workaround or that you have, but I don't know. I think there's something kind of cool about even shutting off that feature and just trying to get things down. So 89 words. Maybe it would be less, if I had opportunities to back up on this. I don't know. We'll have to see what that would be like. I think that's it's a pretty interesting program. Now, let me try this draft one again to see if I can actually get it working, because I thought it was a pretty cool project. For some reason, my Chrome browser isn't even letting me open up a new tab, so I'm going to have to kind of work my way around it to see if I can find it. Give me just a second. Writer, App Store, Chrome Store. Yes. Let's see. Let's try this one. You want to work now? No, you don't. Interesting. Not sure why that is. What I'm pleased to say, though, is you have all kinds of different options here right into the Chrome store, like different web editors and so forth. Plenty of other applications that I'm not mentioning here that I think that there's much more we could discuss, but these seem like pretty good viable options. I can see myself using even more so, and because of their simplicity. Am I going to keep using Scrivener? Yes, probably, because it's been a ritual of mine to open that document up almost every day, and I've been able to work through the ins and outs of it. But in a simpler sort of draft, maybe it's a talk I'm giving, maybe it's notes I'm giving for a lecture. This could be really useful to write with abandon, just to get those words down. All right, so folks, that's all I have for this week. Let's turn back to the Get WRIT writing schedule just to wrap up. As always, enjoyed writing with you all. Enjoyed really just experimenting with different platforms. And this space is always really good for me to put into practice when I'm discussing, right? I'm sampling things leading up to a live stream, but actually doing it with you all and getting your impressions is really nice as well. So if you're looking at this later on, or you're listening to this later on, and you've tried any of these, let me know in the comments how you're feeling about those. If there are ones I've totally missed, right, that you found to be really valuable, let me know as well. Always interested in that. So next week, we have Writing for Accessibility, speaking with a student who is editor-in-chief of the Excalibur newspaper. And then we have Reviewing Anti-Racist Publishing Practices and Editorial Guidelines in the following weeks. And then we have some great speakers lined up also for March. So hope you enjoyed this stream. Again, let me know if you have any questions about Writing Center supports or ideas for the stream. Always open to those. And other than that, I will see you all and talk to you all next week. Have a great rest of the week. Bye.